and you don't care about other developers that you're working with. So that's why we always say master is perfect, clean, and trustworthy. And so the way you get started on collaboration is the first thing you should do. And so if you think about GitHub, more so than even a code repository, it's where you collaborate and do code review. That's what you really should think about GitHub, and then Git is the source control in your terminal or PowerShell, right? So the first thing you should do when you're doing a project is create the repo. So I have one here. It's called Fruit Drop. And so the number one thing you should do is go to your settings and go to collaborators. And then add all the people in your group here. So Richard, we're still waiting for you to confirm. And the reason why you're doing this is because this is the way to mention each other and talk to one another, and you can now push and commit to your repo. And so, for example, if you think about Fruit Drop right here, so I'm in my terminal. This is probably something that you guys have seen and probably something that you've been doing. And so right now you'll see that I'm on the master branch. And so number one thing is, I said, do not ever commit directly to master, right? Because, for example, I don't know how your workflows are going to be, and as a team you should think about that yourselves. But for example, say Faster's in my group. So Faster's going to work on maybe the login, like authentication part, and Vanessa's going to sort of work on another feature, the user profile page, right? But nevertheless, it doesn't mean that Faster's going to be in one file, Vanessa's only going to be in the other file. We're going to be working the same files. And I know it's going to be scary, but you will run into a merge conflict, right? Like, Vanessa changes one thing, Faster's going to change the other thing. And the thing is, if you just merge and you don't care about the other and you remove somebody else's commit and put yours in, you're going to hate each other, right? Because you worked all night on code, and then all of a sudden Vanessa comes in and decides, oh, I don't need this, I'm going to merge mine in. You don't want to do that. And so the way you do that is you always create a branch from master. So for example, I'm going to go to Fruit Drop, right? So here is my file. This is my repo, right? And so say I don't like the name or whatever changes you're going to make. But I'm going to make a very simple change. I don't like the name. I'm going to change the name to Fruit Dropper. So I'm going to save that, right? But if I go into my terminal, I'm in master. You should never be master. Always branch off. And every little thing that you do, whether it's a bug fix or it's a feature or even like a typo change, it should be branching off of master. So for example, I'm going to create a branch. And I changed the title, right? So I'm going to be Grace title. So I created that branch. I'm going to check out to Grace title. So I'm now in Grace title. So if I go there, Git status is probably going to be your best friend. So it looks like I made a change in map.html, but also I made a change in index.
Can
right?
you get a little bigger?
Oh, sorry, yeah.
I'm getting old.
Can you see that? Okay. So right now I'm in the Grace title branch. I've made those changes, Git status, I'll see what's been changed. So you do the same thing that we've always been doing. You add your commits, you put a commit message, and it could be like changing title. And this is when messages are going to be really important, because how are other people in your project going to know? I mean, you could say nothing, but it's not really helpful. So here you say changing title, and then I push. So what happens is, so when I push, it's going to be there. So what's happening is when I made that push, I'm going to go directly to pull requests, right? You're going to want to create a new pull request right here. And then you'll see right here, 21 seconds ago, here's the branch that I created. So I go to Grace title branch. And what's great about pull requests, so the bread and butter of GitHub is issues and pull requests. This is our bread and butter. These are our features that everybody is supposed to be using. And so if we see it right here, you'll see exactly the change that I made. And you can see that in a diff. So it used to be Fruit Drop, and I now changed it to Fruit Dropper. All right, so I'm going to create the pull request. And your message shows up right there. And so this is where the collaboration should start. And so once you've added all your collaborators, all my collaborators show up as an admin. So I'm going to say, Vanessa, I want to change the title. What do you think? right? And then I should also, maybe I mentioned everybody, look up here, right? And so here you can assign it to yourself. And these are when you start working at companies, these are going to become a way bigger deal because the pull request you open, you should always close, right? But here you don't have to. You can assign a reviewer, say, I don't want to merge this until Vanessa gives me the okay. You can assign somebody to be the master of the code or the owner of the code. That's really up to you. But maybe in our projects for now, we don't need to have one person be the owner of all the code. Or you can designate some people. And so I'm going to create the pull request right here. So essentially what's going to happen, there's no conflicts with the base branch right now. So this might change when you guys are working together. And so then Fausto, Vanessa, or Richard can go in and they can leave a comment, looks good, thumbs up, merge it away. And you should always get that approval from somebody else. And so what's really great about this is that you can see the exact files that were changed here. Two things were changed. You can look at the direct commits, like Grace committed this. And one thing about Git and GitHub, Git never lies. So any change you do will be coming back to you, right? So we can find who made every change, which is always good, right? You don't want to have a random change that you don't know who did it. And then so if it looks good and say pretend Fausto and everybody said, good, I like the change. Or you can say, no, I don't like that change, don't change it. And then what you do is you just don't change it, and it doesn't affect the code. But say everybody says yes, you merge it. And so good practice is now pull request is successfully merged and closed, and you're all set, and you can now safely delete. So branches are sort of, if you're eating and then you leave a wrapper, like always clean up after yourself, clean the branches, and then good practice is always to delete the branch. And so now that that's been added, if you go to my code, and I change the index up, now you'll see that it's now fruit dropper and it's been merged in. So now master is clean and it's good to go. So this is a very simple example and there's no merge conflicts and that's fine. And this is how we should probably be working, but this is not essentially workflow. This is just good practice as a developer. But I wanted to also show you a few bad examples. And so GitHub.com is an open source platform. And what that means is all the developers that want to work in open source, for example, you're giving out your code for free, right? And everybody's able to see it. But the idea isn't that, oh, I'm giving my code out for free. The advantage is that now you have millions of developers on GitHub that can also review your code for you. And so I would actually recommend that you go through GitHub, look at the more popular repos, and then you can provide your own changes. You can open up a pull request and say, hey, I found a bug. Like, do you want to provide your changes, open up a PR like I just did. And then the owners of the repos will say either, oh, this looks great, thanks, and then you can merge it in. So you're actually getting code review from the community, and so that's really what GitHub is all about. I work on the sales side, so that's a little different. But nevertheless, on the .com side, you have all these, and this is also a place where you can go and see how other developers work, and you can see styles of certain developers, and you'll see the ones with a lot of stars. I would go into their code and see their style and sort of try to emulate them. I feel like that's how a lot of developers learn, by looking at other good code and bad code. So for example, this is a really famous repo on GitHub. It's called Cheer.js. It's a web scraper. And so this was an actual pull request. You'll see here.
And we're actually going to be using it later in this course.
Cool.
Yeah.
My friend created Cheerio.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
So actually, if you look at Cheerio, so this is a pull request. This is an example of a bad one. But you'll see how hello was like, hey, help review it and add these changes to the main repo. So he's just a contributor. So there's owners and contributors, and you can designate these people, right? Because thousands of developers are going to be working on code. So this guy, how hello, came in and goes, hey, why don't you review all these changes that I made and add them to the main repo? So normally, if you're new and you see that a repo, this has been around, this is 141 issues. This has been around for a while. This is back in 2013. He's like, add all of this, right? So look at all the commits that he's made. This is huge, right? So if we look at this, he's actually made changes to 18 files, okay, and made 37, well, this is the total, but he's made changes to 18 files. So imagine if you own the code and somebody comes in and goes, hey, make all these changes, 18 files, and you have to code review all of that in one PR. So like I said, even if it's a typo, open up a PR. Even if it's something small, people prefer smaller changes, right? So this is the code owner. You'll see that here. You can see their status. It goes, first of all, thanks for all your effort. Giant pull requests like these are a bit problematic as they touch many unrelated topics. It would have been nice to have pull requests for logical blocks, right? And that makes sense, right? And that's what you want to do, even when you're working in project groups. You don't want to make a huge feature change, like I'm going to add authentication now, and then somebody has to review that. That sort of sucks. Just imagine code reviewing it yourself. So these owners are actually really nice. Sometimes in the GitHub community, they aren't so nice. They'll tell you like, you'll see. Sometimes they aren't nice, but I picked you because the owners are very nice and they're very open to new contributors. So if you're trying to contribute to an open source project, read through the issues and pull requests and sort of get the vibe of the owners. And if they're a little mean, maybe make sure your code is for sure good. Or, try going to an easier, nicer group of owners. And sometimes you won't hear from them. If it's really popular like Cheerio, the owner may not reply for months because they're probably working on something else. But it's okay. So this guy is really nice, told him what to do. And then so what's really great is you can have single line comments, right? So the owner goes like, he comments out this part and goes, what are the arguments, right? And he's asking the question. And he's commenting on every parts of the code, right? And so when you have an 18 file change, there's a lot to ask, right? So he's asking all these questions, badly formatted, or is that something missing? But you want to make sure the code is probably top-notch if you're going to be making big changes, especially to a popular repo. And then so some people will be designated contributors. They'll give you feedback like David Chambers is doing here. And then he's like, I'm going to stop here. There's apparently more changes, blah, blah, blah. And so they're commenting, and this is not what you want to do in a normal pull request. And then Hao is really cool. He goes, thanks for the review. I'm working on it as per your suggestions. Any ideas how to separate these? So this is a really great pull request because this guy is awesome. He gives you he tells you what to do. Check out master, update master, check out a new branch, and then check out from there. And so he gives you like step-by-step help. A lot of times they won't do that, but this guy is really cool. And then so as you can always see, PRs are always welcome and they're really cool. So if we look at something like this, so this is another pull request, and what happens is I wanted to enable a few pending tests for a test suite, and I discovered a few bugs. So this is what PRs are for. You found a bug, you're going to fix it, you're going to add your code, right? And so this is great, 2 files, small commit. Just because it's 1 file doesn't mean that it's small. Just make small commits. And so then you'll have collaboration here. You say, is the naming condition necessary? Do you think? And then he explains it. Yes, of course. And then this is the code owner, Matt Miller, goes great stuff, and only the owners are going to merge in the code. You'll see he added a commit, and he merged it directly into Cheerio.js master. So unless you get that okay, and usually the code owners are the ones that can merge it. It's up to you. It could be the person who opened the pull request merge, or the owner merges it. You guys can decide that on your own, who merges to master. But you want to keep that probably fairly small. And the thing is, and so what I said was that in GitHub, the main things are pull requests and issues. That's what GitHub is really their bread and butter. So if you look at this, an issue is really where you can talk about a feature. You're like, hey, what about adding this feature? Or you can say, I think I found a bug, but you don't have the fix for it. You can say, hey, open up an issue. I think I found a bug here. Does everybody else agree? Or you can say, I want this feature. What do you think? And then write out how you would go about that change. And so you see here, this really confuses me. They're talking about an issue here. I'm new to GitHub, so forgive me if I did something wrong. That's very common. So, and then you'll see is that if you go into this pull request, this should resolve issue 225, which is directly this issue right here. So you can link to each other from an issue or a pull request. You can link each other and says, this should fix it, and then you'll see the files changed here. And then you'll see that they'll merge it. Lovely patch, thank you, sure thing. and then you'll see that the code owner merged it into master here. So essentially, this is really this is not actually a workflow. These are best practices on how you should be working together as a group. Workflow is more around, who's going to merge the code. You might want to determine that. Should you get one code review? Should it be reviewed by 2 people, 3 people, and then you merge? And then if you come across a merge conflict, don't panic. Just calm down. And then do git status, see where it is, open up that file, and if you see that it's going to have a bunch of carets, right? And it's going to have the change and then the conflicting change. And then talk to one another and say, whose code should we keep? Don't remove other people's code and then just commit yours, right? So this is when you should be talking to one another and say, oh, I did this because of this. No, I did it because of this. Figure it out. Figure out which change to make. Remove the one that you don't need. And then add, commit, and then push. Open up a PR, and then merge, and then delete the branch. Any questions? I know it's a lot of steps. I have a workflow little document if you want it. I know I gave it to the Tuesday, Thursday, but I have a few left for our Monday, Wednesday's class. Let me know.
Is there like a big red button that the owner can do to undo some of those extensive damage by doing it and demonstrating?
Technically, that shouldn't happen if you're merging good code to master.
Right.
Right.
I was just
But
saying,
if you
in
do
that situation where a person just shows up.
Yeah, you can revert it. Yeah, and so the one good thing, like I said, Git never forgets. It will find you, and will find the person that made that commit. So that's also a very good thing, right? You know that SHA, which is like a weird bunch of numbers, that's specific to that commit, and you can search through the commits and find the one that you want to revert.
Do you branch off and branch so they
Yeah.
work with it?
You can branch off of a branch too. And so that's the workflow part. So say, this is where it gets sort of confusing, is like, does everybody branch off, Grace's branch for the title? Or you can do different features like, Ali's gonna do, I'm gonna work strictly on the, whatever, authentication feature, and then that's all on Ali, and he could either put it in one long branch. You could do that. We recommend against it because code review can get difficult. Or you can do like, oh, this is just I'm adding this in one little branch, and then I'm gonna add this in another branch. And so it's easier to code review. It's really dependent on what you guys are looking for. So you might want to talk about that with your team and figure out like how you're gonna branch off and things like that. But again, never merge directly into master. I mean, you can, but
No, they can't.
yeah, you never want to do that because when you work in a company, essentially what they're going to do is you're going to be completely working in PRs. And to be completely honest, like Git and GitHub and GitLab are the more modern technologies. So when you go to companies, your source control may not be Git. Git is one of the more modern ones. If you go to other companies, you're going to hear things like Subversion, CVS. If you work at a gaming company, Perforce. So that's what you're going to most likely do in your first 2, 3, 6, 1 year is learn the tech stack. And they're going to be like, we only use CVS. So instead of Git, you're going to have to learn a different source control. And then your remote GitHub, it may not be GitHub. It could be Bitbucket, an Atlassian product. So essentially, they all do the same thing, but that's one of the first things I would ask is like, what is your tech stack, what is your source control, and what is your collaboration method? And if they say they don't have one, probably you shouldn't work at that company, I would say, right? Because that means they don't care about code review, and that's really scary. And you don't want to be that developer that gets a call at like 2 a.m. from the sysadmins like your code broke our entire site, right? And that's going to happen. Nevertheless, every developer goes through it. And then you're going to break the site, and then you're going to get a call. You have to fix it, and the next day or so, you're going to have to do a postmortem where you talk about what you did wrong. You have to admit it, and then you have to say what you will never do again and how this will never happen. I talked to a Snapchat developer, and he said the first week he broke the chat functionality of Snapchat.
Oh my god.
And he's like, I'll never make that mistake again because you have to talk to every single one of your engineers and the directors and talk about what you did. And it's like a rite of passage. You have to do it. It's going to happen. But it wouldn't have happened if you got code reviewed. And then at least you could put the responsibility on that. Well, he reviewed my code and said it was good. So then both of them will have to do the code, right? But you don't want to be up there alone being like, I just merged this, and then have a problem. So, yeah. Any other questions?
Oh, well, thank you so much. Okay, so